Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hassani. Good to have you with us. Today is Friday, which means it is Ask the Experts. Any question you have, if you're dating, in a committed courtship, engaged, married, separated, on the verge of divorce, if it's complicated, whatever your situation is, today is all about you. So post your questions. We'll get right into your answers. But listen, before we get started, let's go to a quick commercial break. We have Last Chance Weekends coming up all summer long. Listen, if you want to get involved, you need to check out these dates. Obviously, we have June the 7th through the 9th. That's soon to come. Then we have July the 12th through the 14th. After you celebrate the 4th of July, come on down to Atlanta and be a part of this experience. And then before going back to school, August the 9th through the 11th is the final one for the summertime. So reach out to us, set up a discovery call, and let's book your Last Chance Weekend today. Let's go to a quick commercial. Post your question. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. We're going to dive right into some questions. I have some that came through email. First question is, how do you handle a partner who refuses to be transparent about money, feelings, past trauma, just their life in general? It has been this way since dating. Yeah, this is a serious situation that many people find themselves in. Here's the reality. There are certain people who have a level of guilt and a level of shame based upon what they've endured in their past, and oftentimes they're very tight-lipped. I know people particularly who have been through abuse, and then they enter into a committed relationship and they have a approach that says, don't ever ask me about what happened to me in my childhood. I'm not telling you. I don't trust you. And what's interesting is oftentimes they are triggered by certain questions or triggered by certain conversations. And it seems like the way that they react, whether it's anger, whether they become highly emotional, and it's just like the punishment didn't fit the crime. I just asked a question and you blew up on me. And oftentimes it's because they have unresolved issues. They have traumas and hurts that have not been healed, and there's a level of shame associated with it. And they still have anger for the person who may be involved in whatever incident happened to them, and they take it out on their current partner. And they have these internal vows about what will never happen to them again, what they'll never go through again. And they wind up punishing their present partner for something that they had nothing to do with. You know, I heard a good friend of mine, you give this example some time ago. He said, imagine going into a restaurant to order a meal. But before you can place your order, the waiter requires that you pay the bill of the customer who came before you. And you're like, wait a minute, you mean I can't order a meal until I pay the last person's bill? I had nothing to do with that. I didn't eat that meal. But yet you're still held responsible for someone else's stuff. And so likewise, relationally, that's exactly what happens. You wind up having to pay the bill or pay the debt or suffer the consequences for something that you had nothing to do with. At the end of the day, the foundation of all relationships is communication. And in order to effectively communicate, you've got to be able to have a level of intimacy. And intimacy simply means, once again, into-me-see. We're doing a series on it now, restoring intimacy after an affair. But what about if your spouse has never been intimate at all from the beginning of the relationship? Now, once again, when we say intimacy, we're not talking about sex. That is an aspect, that is a component. But what we're really talking about is emotional intimacy, where you open up your heart and your mind and you begin to share things about your past. So when someone comes into a relationship and they operate in a very secretive way, they have a leaning towards privacy, they compartmentalize aspects of their life, they live in a silo, they operate in an independent, autonomous way, not inviting you into conversations, not inviting you into decisions, not making the decision to operate in oneness. They're very separate. That is a problem. That is a problem. And unfortunately, a lot of people engage in that. So the question is, what do you do? Number one, you have to, listen, you can't change your spouse. Okay, so the one thing that you could do is pray for your spouse. You know, in our relationship, when we were going through challenges in the very beginning, there was nothing that Danielle could say that could change me. There was nothing that she could do that could change me. And she realized that when she didn't have the power to do so, her greatest power was on her knees in prayer. And when she began to take my issues and concerns about me to God, that's when the work began to happen. So I think we've lost the power of prayer in relationships. We don't talk enough about the spiritual aspect and the spiritual authority that you have as a covenant partner in this thing called marriage. And how you can begin to shift things in the atmosphere, and you can begin to pray for the things that are going on in a person's heart and mind that can bring about that level of change. So if you've done all that you can do and it's not working, number one, pray. Number two, you want to be able to create a safe environment that makes it conducive for your spouse to share. Because I would imagine that there's a lot of fear associated with what they say. See, some people believe if you know the real me, if you know what I've really gone through, if you know what I really think and how I really feel, you will judge me for sure. You know, you will no longer keep me on your pedestal. You will treat me in a completely different way. And their fear of how they will be accepted or rejected, their fear of what happens if these truths come out, are strong enough to keep them from communicating. So as a partner, as a spouse, you have to reinforce that, hey, babe, we're on the same team. Listen, I am here for you. Once they realize that they have a safe environment, then you want to create an atmosphere where they slowly begin to peel back the layers. Sometimes we want too much too soon. It becomes overwhelming and they completely shut down and revert. But if you can create scenarios where little pieces come out consistently over a period of time, as they're working on becoming their best selves, healing their trauma, getting the help they need, and you having healthy communication, things can begin to unpack and unfold. Unfortunately, a lot of spouses, in their frustration, in their disappointment, in their disgust, oftentimes create these environments that shuts a spouse down. They're beat up, not physically, but they're told how wrong they are, how it's not fair, it doesn't make any sense. There's like this pressure and struggle to get them to release the information. And the more pressure you apply in that way, the more that they retract, okay? So finding out the source of your spouse's motivation is critically important to begin to delve into these issues. Because as I'm reading it, listen, the fact of the matter is, finances, the person is secretive about finances and secretive about a lot of other things. These are the things that are essential to talk about and work through if you're going to have a healthy relationship. And if you're not able to communicate with your spouse on basic things, then you have a rocky foundation in that particular relationship. So that would be my advice. Hopefully that helps you. There's so many questions here. How do I get there? Okay, are there ways that we can take the temperature of our marriage routinely over and above date night and work day? Okay, so if you've been with us long enough, you know that we talk about the importance of your work day and your play day. This is a regular thing that we encourage couples to do. Now, if you're taking an hour a day because you have 168 hours in a week to work on your relationship, to work through issues, it will allow things to be addressed and hopefully resolved, and will allow you to move forward in your healing and recovery process. But then there should be a day where you have fun and you connect and you have a good time and you remind each other of why you fell in love in the first place. And the regularity of that and the consistency of that creates momentum in the relationship that moves you forward in a positive direction. People who have a work day but don't honor their play day because their feeling is, you know what, I'm not ready for this. I don't think we're in a good place now. I'm not trying to go out here faking it, acting as if everything's okay and it's not. I'm not doing it until I feel good. So until then, we can have our work days. People who honor their work day and don't honor their play day suffer. Then there are those who say, you know what, all I want to do is have fun, because it seems like, man, we haven't had fun in a long time. Everything's so serious. Everything's work. Every time we talk, the conversations get dark. You know, it doesn't seem to take us anywhere. So why don't we just have our play day and don't do our work days for just a while? People who honor their play day but don't honor their work day suffer. It is the combination of the two that gets you going. So consistency in that place, in that space, moves you forward and allows you to reach the next pitch of your relationship. So going back to the question, how do we take the temperature? Well, I've always said that a healthy spouse is a metric of how you're doing in the relationship. If I'm unhealthy as a spouse, if I'm broken as a spouse, if I have pains, if I have traumas, if I have resentment and bitterness, I'm going to be looking at you through the lens of my pain, and I will be misevaluating what I see based upon what I'm personally going through. But as I become healthy, as I heal, and I'm operating from a different place, I can remove that lens, I can remove the shade and see you for who you really are. And now I can properly assess how you're doing as a spouse. Now I can properly take the temperature of our relationship, if that makes sense. So a healthy spouse is someone who can be a metric to measure the success and the performance of your relationship. That's number one. Number two, all of you members of the Moving Forward program, you know the tools that we provide, you know the assessments that we give, and usually this is done in the very beginning of your journey. But we always encourage you every 6 months to a year, retake the assessment, because as you're taking these assessments, you're evaluating or you're ranking or rating where your relationship is on a scale of 1 to 10. So those numbers should shift and change. Things that were once important aren't important anymore. Numbers that you once were low should be higher now. And so doing an honest assessment and deep dive based upon the assessments will give you a clear indication of where you are. That will allow you to measure the temperature of the relationship. And third, it's always good to have other people who can speak into your life. For those of you in our program, we talk about the importance of this hub and spoke support model. Now, go to that particular model and look at the people that you have in your hub and spoke, and then begin to ask some questions from your perspective, from your vantage point. What do you see? Are things the same? Have things gotten better? Have things gotten worse? They are an indication of where you are, and they can test the temperature of your relationship. So having wise counsel and a small inner core to be a part of your life, critically important. And then lastly, your counselor. And so working with us, we have a team of practitioners that can also look from an objective perspective, not a subjective perspective. Because we're not emotionally attached to you in the way that you are to one another, we can see things that you can't see, perceive things that you can't perceive. And so the Gottman Institute has the ability of looking at couples and just observing them, observing their body language, observing their tone, observing their eye contact, the way that they communicate, and they can predict the success or failure of a couple just through non-verbal forms of communication. Well, we have the ability of assessing that as well. So working with a counselor is a good way to test the temperature. Hopefully that makes sense. Got a few questions. We want to go to them. First up, we have Righteous Dame. Good to see you, Righteous Dame. What What do you think is the best way to get your girlfriend, soon to be fiance, to show more affection? We argue over that more than anything, and it's driving a wedge between us. Okay, so once again, what is the best way to get your girlfriend, soon to be fiance, to show you more? Okay, well, I'm sure you've had these conversations and you've had these discussions. Okay, so one thing I would offer you to do is to get the book, The 5 Love Languages, because as you read that book, The 5 Love Languages, it's going to explain that you have words of affection, words of affirmation, you have physical touch, acts of service, the giving of gifts, and quality time. These are essential. Now, obviously, it seems like affection or physical touch may be one of your love languages. And so reading this book together, it will explain the importance of why these needs have to be met in these languages, have to be spoken in order for a person to feel loved. Sometimes hearing the message from you, she will tune a deaf ear because, oh, you've been talking about it and complaining about it, and you just get on my first and last nerves and I can't take this anymore. But sometimes hearing the same message through a different voice can help, because Danielle had been telling me, had been complaining, had been struggling with particular things, and I tuned a deaf ear to Danielle. But when I heard the same thing from a different person, it resonated, it connected. I heard it in a different way. It didn't come with an agenda. It didn't come with all the angst. It didn't come with attitude and tone. I was able to receive it. So sometimes getting someone else to communicate that message can do it. And so whether it be that book, whether you go online and watch a couple of videos, whether you tune into the show, whether you do a session, I think it can help. But this is what I'll tell you. A lot of people grew up in a household where they were not exposed to certain things, and then they enter into a relationship where there is an expectation for the very thing that they're not familiar with. And so many people get settled in their deficiency. Many people are comfortable with what they don't know and what they're not competent at and say, well, that's just not me. I didn't see it and I don't do it, and it is what it is. And the reality is, in this relationship, we're entering into a level of commitment and soon to be marriage. And there's certain expectations that need to be met if we're going to have a mutually beneficial, long-lasting relationship. And so here's what I would suggest to you. While waiting for her to be more affectionate to you, what is the one thing that you can improve? What is the one thing that you can increase in terms of your willingness, in terms of your performance? Because sometimes that's what does it. Like when you demonstrate for her and be the example of what you want her to be for you, that works. So rather than arguing back and forth about what more she can do for you, why don't you be an example and walk the walk? Don't just talk the talk, walk the walk, walk the talk, and demonstrate for her by meeting her need that may not be natural to her, which will be an aha moment. And that may transition into her doing for you what is not natural for her. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, let's go to another question. Plachette Benford, good to see you. Honoring play day can make one feel as if I have any fun, then I am dismissing the issue they have. Okay, honoring play day can make one feel as if I have any fun, then I am dismissing the issue they have. Okay, I'm going to try to interpret that. So, play day is critically important. During play day, okay, you may not be asking this question, but it's prompting me to say this. During your play day, this is not the time to be discussing issues in the relationship. A lot of times people use date night as a way to talk through and work through relational issues. And it doesn't work. It can actually sabotage what it is that you're trying to do. So you want to reserve your issues for workday, and you want to find something to connect with, connect on, have fun, be light, engage in on play day. You gotta keep them very separate. Oftentimes we sabotage the moment by going into conversations that do not help. Now, having fun is the purpose of the play day. It doesn't mean that there are no problems. It doesn't mean that there's nothing to work on. There is. But if we continue to allow the problems and the issues to permeate every area of our lives, it will rob us of the fun and the connection and the love that we need to consistently engage in to ensure that we remain in a healthy place. So sometimes, just think about the crisis going on in the Middle East. Right? Even they have a peace treaty every now and then. Even they say, listen, let's just push pause. And that concept, and I don't want to minimize the tragedy that's happening out there because it's horrific, and I can go on a diatribe on that. But what I'm saying is, in the midst of you working on rebuilding and restoring your relationship, there got to be times where you just push pause. Can we not talk about that now? Can we just have fun? Can we show ourselves that we can connect and have a good time, knowing that Rome wasn't built in a day, and we'll be able to get back to these answers or these questions a little bit later to bring about resolution and solution. So that would be my advice for you. And to really be intentional with the date night. And this is why, for those of you who go through our program, we create, in essence, a list of what these date nights should be. So you're not just by default just going out and getting something to eat, because that's what the typical date is for most couples who don't have a plan. You want to go out and get something to eat? Okay, let's get something to eat. It's not a date. You're just eating in a different location. You're just choosing to step outside of your home just to have a meal. You're not dressed up. You're not looking cute. You're not taking your woman or your man out. You're taking your husband or your wife out, dealing with husband and wife duties across a dinner table at a restaurant, and it's stale. Don't do that. Protect the integrity of the play day and go into it hard to the core. All right, April, question. My husband told me that his affair is over, but I have no proof. What should I do? You have to put our business. Okay. So anyway, the affair has been told. You've been told that the affair is over. What is the evidence? This is one of the biggest concerns, because initially the affair is over. We're excited. We're happy. We're thrilled. But then, wait a minute. How did it end? What was said? How did it go down? Then you don't need to worry about how it happened. Oftentimes, if people do end it, they end it in secret. They end it in private because they want to do it their way. They want to have their own conversation. They want to bring closure the way they want to bring it. And so it creates other trust issues because I'm not sure what happened. Did she leave? Did you decide to leave? Was something not working in the relationship? How do I know you actually said it was over? How do I know you didn't say, hey, let's lay low for a while because you know what, my wife kind of find out what's going on, so I'll get back with you? How do I know that you entered into the no contact contract and shut down all forms of communication through phone, through text, through social media, through social gatherings? How do I know that? I don't know that. How do I know that you're not secretly, clandestinely still connecting and engaging with this person? How do I know that? I don't know that. So if it is over, it is a requirement and a responsibility for your spouse to produce the receipts. And even when they produce the receipts, if they can, the affair should end again with the proper messaging while you being present. Now, that may not be something that you can do on your own, but this is what we guide couples through. Because to your point, a lot of people, even when they know it's over, still have questions of is it? They still doubt. They're still unsure. There could still be a door ajar, a window cracked, which leaves an opportunity for that person to come right back in, because a lot of times relationships come to an end, months go by, and all it takes is a poke, is a DM, is a like, is a share, is something, and that reintroduces that interaction all over again, and boom, we find ourselves in the same place. So we want to really build a thick, impenetrable wall around the marriage to prevent any possibility of an affair happening. So if that is your concern, I would highly recommend that you get your spouse to prove that it is over, and then come into us so that we can guide you through a process and walk you through the necessary steps to ensure it. Because at the end of the day, if you don't feel comfortable, if you don't feel safe, if you have no more trust in him and in the relationship that things are on the right track, what is the benefit of you staying? Like, what are you I'm not suggesting you leave. That's not what I'm saying. But what are the benefits of staying if a spouse continues to remain who he has always been? So hopefully that helps. I think I got another question. Is being tipsy or drunk does being tipsy or drunk excuse cheating, like behaviors such as a touch or a kiss? Well, as Jamie Foxx once said, he had that song, Blame It on the Alcohol. It's so interesting. I have heard many people use alcohol as a reason or a justification for what they do. Now, what I will say is, a lot of times people drink alcohol because it lowers their inhibitions, if I'm saying that correctly. Like, if they are tense, it makes them more relaxed. If they are closed, in terms of a personality, when they drink, it makes them more open. If they are serious, when they drink, it makes them more silly. And so if they're a person who's more cautious, when they drink, it makes them more carefree. So there is something that the alcohol does do to the person that alters their natural state, their reasoning, and their decision making. Now, when people say, did I do that? I don't even remember if I did that. I don't even know how it happened. It must be alcohol. Maybe it's a situation where they are piss poor, sloppy, hangover drunk, and they've lost all consciousness, and they're engaging in activities that they're not even aware of, and they wake up and they look at it and they're like, what happened last night? I'm not even sure what happened. That's like piss poor drunk and good God problems. But a lot of people use alcohol because they know that it alters moods, attitudes, behaviors. It sedates them. It helps them to feel something or to not feel something. It helps them to, it's just like this. Think about this. There are many people in the entertainment industry that act, that have drug addictions, right? So before they go into a scene, guess what? They sniff cocaine. Why? Because it makes them feel invincible. It gives them a confidence and a boldness and audaciousness that they normally do not have. So they use the drug to alter their state to be able to do what they cannot do on their own. Many of us are watching what is happening with Diddy and all of these celebrities that are falling, right? And the veil is being pulled back. And we're realizing that a lot of these parties are laced with alcohol and laced with drugs. Why? Why would they need alcohol and drugs to engage in the practices that they're practicing? Because each drug or each alcohol has a different effect on the physical body, on the mind, on the psychology, and it allows them to do, allows them to be, or allows them to escape. Think about this. A lot of people who are sex workers, right? A lot of people who are engaged in all types of practices oftentimes use drugs and alcohol to not feel, because they feel so depressed. They hate themselves. They hate what they do. And the only way to get through it is to intoxicate themselves, is to drug themselves up. Now, I'm giving you all of these examples to make a point. The point is, yes, alcohol and drugs can have an effect. That doesn't mean that your spouse may not be using the drugs or the alcohol as an excuse. So if I had a couple of drinks, right, and that's a behavior that I'm used to engaging in, and I know how to hold my liquor, as they say, maybe the alcohol is being used as an excuse to cover his behavior. Or depending upon how he handles his alcohol and how much he drank, maybe it did have an effect. So whether he's using it as an excuse or not, at the end of the day, it happened irregardless. There was damage done. There was a betrayal. Okay, so if you're saying that the alcohol influenced your behavior, then guess what? The new norm and the new behavior is we've got to curb the alcohol. Because obviously, when you're drinking alcohol, you don't make healthy decisions and you do things that compromise the integrity of the relationship. So alcohol has to become a thing of the past. You can't tell me you can still drink or drink to the degree that you were and it won't have an impact when obviously it resulted in this. So rob him of any excuse that he has. You understand? To not put himself in a position where he will betray you again. And if alcohol is the culprit, then let's remove alcohol from his life and from the situation. Anyway, guys, I hope you got something out of today's Ask the Experts. What a great conversation. These are conversations that you need to continue to have with your spouse. So do me a favor, watch the replay, take good notes, engage in the conversation, and we will see you soon. Plachette, love you. All of you, appreciate you. Righteous Dame, never met you. Glad you're here. Torre, so many of you here. See you on Monday. Have a great, great, great holiday weekend. See you on Monday for another great episode. All right, guys, take care. Enjoy your holiday.